Hi, this is Nick Cap, and I want to talk to you today about basically biopharmaceutical manufacturing. This is a blog from the SF, San Francisco Peritoneal Drug Student Chapter, and today's date is June 12th, 2020, and I will be covering the materials today for you. And my name is Nick Cap. I am the student club advisor for the West Coast Student Chapter of the PDA. We will be talking with Maria D'Aguilar, who's our student club president. And what we want to try and do is a series of weekly podcasts from 15 to 30 minutes long, kind of covering some topics that the novice or somebody who's new to the biopharmaceutical manufacturing industry would need to know kind of something about. So again, we're not assuming that anyone knows anything on this at all, and we're going to try and do it, and we're going to try and do it fun, and we're going to try and do it for basically about 15 minutes. So I will put on a timer on my phone for roughly about 15 minutes, and hopefully we won't do more time than that. Okay. All right, so we'll go on here. So what we intend to do is to kind of inform and educate a new generation of pharma manufacturers through a discussion. We'll post some helpful links. We'll tell some stories. Hopefully we'll have some interviews, and we'll learn a little bit more about this area, the biotech manufacturing. And so it's really meant to be for kind of the novice and kind of some intermediates as well. With that being said, we want you to help us help you. And so in the coming weeks, we will be trying out various ways to inform our listeners on what it takes to work in the pharma manufacturing sphere. We are really interested in that in the Bay Area here in San Francisco Bay Area because, again, so much of the industry here is biopharma. We really want to talk to you about that and kind of entice you into kind of going into that field. We will talk about many ways to support your biopharma manufacturing listener, and we're committed to through the basically the Peritoneal Drug Association. I really like the association. I've been a member now for a number of years, and their tagline is connecting people, science, and regulation. That being said, why do you want to work for pharma? Basically, you may need a job. Okay, that's what you want to do. In the Bay Area, about half the economic activity is in biopharmaceuticals, so it is kind of a job that a lot of you will end up doing, whether you kind of want to do it or not. Why work for pharma? And basically, if you like to help people, you want to be a part of medicine, but you don't like working directly with people, with either people or sick people. I mean, you like helping people, but the idea, especially now that we're sheltered in place, you don't want to really deal with people. And what better way than to kind of make these wonderful life-saving medications to be able to give to people. And again, that's number 4 is I want to do something that's monetarily rewarding, yet is psychologically rewarding as well. Okay, it makes you feel like a good person. So again, when you manufacture these drugs, again, you're getting a salary to do it and stuff like that, but you're actually helping kind of saving somebody's life, saving somebody's mother, saving somebody's son or daughter. And so there is really important parts to those that I think are kind of critical. Where do we get our information and our stories? What we're going to look at is there are several websites. One that I really like is www.pda.org. That's the Peritoneal Drug Association. There's also www.asq.org, American Society for Quality, ISP.org, which is the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering, connecting pharmacological knowledge. Woo! And then Drug Discovery World, which is ddw-online.com. And there's a number of blogs and everything else that we will kind of look at and try and understand as we do this. Again, these are all good places to give information about careers and what's going on in the field. But we want to be able to do a little bit better, and we want to kind of reach out to people. A lot of people don't know what biotechnology is. A lot of people don't know what biopharma is. And so it's our intent to kind of go through this and take some of those really intimidating jargon and parts and make it accessible to you and make it accessible to everyone. So kind of let us know. We're going to be posting this blog. And if we do something that's a little weird or something like that, just kind of let us know. The first thing I want to do is if you become a student PDA member, which I encourage all of my biotechnology students to do, we have these things that are called the PDA technical reports. And see, PDA, by definition, PDA technical reports are highly valued, peer-reviewed, global consensus documents written by subject matter experts on issues related to a wide array of challenging technical areas for pharmaceutical manufacturers. What's that? That's a load. Basically, in pharma, and we'll cover that at another date, is a very heavily regulated industry. So there's rules and regulations that the government writes down, and you can look at them. But basically, they're not that prescriptive. And so if a regulation told you to turn left, stand walk 5 paces and put something down, that's exactly what you had to do. And so again, what we may see in these reviews is they give you a broad general area. Okay, our current good manufacturing techniques are kind of general guidelines. And so sometimes people are like, well, what does that mean? What do we really do? And so what we're trying to do with these technical reports, what the PDA tries to do, is to kind of give you a list of what several professionals in the field are thinking about that topic. And so again, you can follow these rules as long as you give a reason as to why you're doing it, and you need to be able to defend those rules and regulations that you do. So basically what the PDA tries to do is to get 5 or 6 people together. So if you're in a big company like Genentech, you have a history there. You have a bunch of people who already kind of know what's going on. But if you're starting out a new pharma company, you don't know what to do. And so what you need to do is kind of read the literature and talk with your colleagues and peers in other places. And the PDA and this blog, I guess, is one of those in order to kind of get to know those a little bit. And so as a PDA member, you are able to download the PDA technical report. So you need to look at this for basically about 30 days. There's a whole library that's available online that you can view these guys, but you can only view them. And I'm having some problems with this as well. And I'll talk to the PDA about that. But basically, what we see is that when you're a PDA member, I would watch this because these technical reports, if you want, it's like, oh, these are good technical reports, you can download it. You could always view the technical reports after 30 days, but you can't download it yourself and have it on there. And, and again, most of you are happy with that. You're able to get it online. Some people like to download them and print them off and stuff like that, but they do get updated and they do get changed, and I would really kind of look on it as a whole. For the format, the technical reports are called TR37 is the latest. They also have what are called PTCs, points to consider, to look at as well, and these are kind of interesting. The range of the technical reports, the latest technical report that's out there is the TR83, virus contamination in biomanufacturing, risk mitigation, preparedness, and response. We'll try and go over that a little bit or talk about that a little bit more. What was the first technical response? That's validation of moist heat sterilization process, cycle design, development, qualification, and ongoing control. This was revised back in 2007. So it was revised 13 years ago, but again, if it works, sometimes why do it? The oldest one that I was able to find was TR number 4 that hadn't been revised so far. This is design concepts for the validation of water for injection system, and this was done in 1983. So again, that's 27 years old. you know, again, I'd be a little bit worried about using that information kind of before, and so hopefully they'll have an update, or they should have an update on that. What I need to do is I need to go back to the PDA and kind of get an idea of kind of how do they number these reports, when do they go, and I will kind of find that out, information out, and do that for you. On to the next section of that we want to look at is the PDA events. Nationwide, you know, again, due to COVID, not much is going on. They are still having a national meeting, but it's going to be virtual, I believe. You know, a lot of these meetings are virtual. The regional West Coast chapter, my college was going to host the Woman in Biotechnology or Biosciences in August, and I don't think that's not going to happen. And so what we really do is kind of look at that. The student chapter hasn't really been meeting since this. Right before, in March, I think a week before this happened, we actually had a speaker come, and she did a really great job. But you know, again, after that, nothing. We haven't done anything. And so what we've got to see is there's a lot of people who are all zoomed out. I don't know whether it would be a blog or whatever, but we got to see. Again, the PDA events are listed on the webpage, and so if you have something that's going on close to you, it's a road trip, I'd recommend going to those. The Southern California group actually does some really fun stuff. Internationally, the Irish group is always really fun. So again, try and do that. We at the West Coast PDA are one of the funner chapters that are around, and I'd strongly recommend going to their activities once they have those activities. And so we will be looking at those activities, and we will try and interview kind of some of these people as well. What I want to try and do and end these things with is kind of a topic that I call In the News, which is the latest news and why our commenter is interested in this. Maria is not here right now, but I'm hoping to have Maria or one of our students kind of come in so that we have a little bit of feedback on there. And what I want to try and do is get an idea of what is biopharmaceuticals in the news. And what I wanted to have my news on is that the news had the headline, and again, this is from an article, and it says, Grifols begins production of anti-SARS-CoV-2 hyperimmune immunoglobulin. A potential anti-COVID-19 passive immune therapy is part of a collaboration with the U.S. government. First doses for trials are expected in July 2020. And so that's basically a month from now. And so basically Grifols, which is a biopharmaceutical company that does a really good job in their Bay Area, they began production of its anti-SARS-CoV-2 hyperimmune immunoglobulin with specific antibodies using the plasma of people who have overcome the disease. It's the first specific drug developed to combat COVID-19. And so a lot of the drugs and stuff like that you're hearing in the news that they've used, like hydroxychloroquine, et cetera, those were developed for kind of other things, and we're seeing that through news. And so this one here, what Grifols did, and Grifols historically has been kind of a serum company. And what they are really good at is collecting serum. They're trying to concentrate the antibodies that will work on this SARS-CoV-2 and bind to that. And so ideally you give people human antibodies. And so, you know, some of the problems are is these are antibodies that are taken from patients who got over it. You know, you're basically looking for viruses and stuff like that. But you're able to give it to people who are pretty sick and see if it helps them. And so essentially what you're doing is it's a passive immunity. And so again, if you give this to people, what you're giving them antibodies. They haven't made the antibodies themselves, which would be active immunity. And this is passive immunity. You're giving them these antibodies, and hopefully those antibodies are able to kind of help you fight off your infection with the SARS-CoV-2. All right. The end of this is Grifols producing this potential anti-COVID-19 passive immune therapy as part of collaboration agreement with the U.S. government, including the FDA, the National Institute of Health, and the Biomedical Advanced Research Development for the BARDA, among other healthcare agencies. The agreement also includes the development of preclinical and clinical trials required to determine treatment efficacy. The company is also moving forward to establish collaborators in Europe as well. And so they want to do this all over. Grifols is an international company. They'll do it all over. But this is kind of exciting news in August. And so again, we don't necessarily have drugs, but the idea is that if you get really sick and go into the hospital, right now, basically, they can hold your hand and they can give you some drugs to treat the symptoms, but they can't necessarily cure you. And here, what they can do is they can give you these antibodies that work for somebody else. They collect all these antibodies and then they give them to people, and hopefully that will work. It's kind of an old technology. It's been around for over 100 years of doing this antibody treatment, but for right now, it's kind of all we have until we have a vaccine. The Grifols anti-SARS-CoV-2 hyperimmune immunoglobulins are being produced in its Clayton, North Carolina facility, which has been specifically designed to process specialty immunoglobulins. Grifols is proceeding with its clinical trial in Spain to assess the effectiveness of high-dose intravenous immunoglobulin to stabilize or improve the condition of COVID-19 patients. The trial aims to assess the action of neutralizing antibodies. These are proteins that bind viruses and prevent them from infecting human cells. And so there's something called a plaque assay that you can learn about, as well as determine the immunomodality of potential immune modulation response of immunoglobulins as therapy to block cytokine storm in patients with severe cases of COVID-19. And so that's one of the things is the COVID-19, how this particular virus kills people, is this thing that we call a kind of a cytokine storm, where it actually looks like the patients are getting better, but then your immune system goes into hyperdrive, and that's what's kind of helping kind of kill off some of these patients. Okay. So that's the news for this week. Ending statement. I'm working on this. So what I want to be able to do is to say thank you very much for seeing our very first podcast. Marie and I want to thank you all for doing this. And what we are going this podcast is, this is the science of biomanufacturing. And we want to include people, regulation, and you. Wow, 15 minutes exactly.